Sometimes we tend to forget the infinite necessity we all have as human beings, being seen, listened, and understood. The cause of most of our problems within human interactions comes from the inability to do so. It all comes down on how people forget or don't even know how to actually listen. One of my biggest concerns is that we are used to perceiving each other as the titles we are given, not as human beings. We don't even perceive it as a broken or damaged, wrong, or outdated. Do we actually question this? When you're with friends, with your close ones, family, or even with strangers, with a doctor, a waiter, a flight attendant, the receptionist, your boss, your gardener, do you actually question yourself about these people around you? Do you ask yourself if this person might be okay? Whether if she or he has repulsions, faiths and fears, dreams and desires? If that person has slept or eaten in the past few days? If they're sad, frustrated, or angry? Do you take the time to reflect upon that? You will never know everything about that person. That's impossible, and it's nobody's duty. Especially when sometimes you don't even know everything about yourself. However, what's important is to have these thoughts in mind and see, listen, and understand people as they are, as human beings. Broadly acknowledge that that person has a past, traumas, and he or she suffers. Maybe they're married, maybe they're not. Have they cried in the last few months? Probably they're struggling in life as you are in this very instant. Or maybe they've got their life figured out. Who knows? And that exactly is the point. You will never know what's really going on in that person's life. But what do you know is that they feel the same way as you do. They have the same necessity to be seen, listened, and understood as you do. The sad reality is that there are a million reasons why we tend to forget this. Maybe we just don't have the time to do it. We're overwhelmed with ourselves, or maybe just too busy. It can also come from cultural repression. So in this matter, maybe we were never taught how to do it. On the other hand, maybe we're too selfish. We might not even have the capacity to place ourselves in someone else's shoes. And without empathy, we will never get to know how to cross that bridge. If that's the case, know this. Empathy is not something you're born with or without. It is a skill that requires practice. You make choices in whether to practice empathy or not all the time. Will you cross the street to avoid a homeless person or pay attention to their pain? Do you dismiss someone who disagrees with you? Or do you take the time to figure out why they feel the way they do? Let's point our cares in the voiceless individuals. Let's point our curiosity at people who anger us, even when ignoring them feels easier. There is something very utopian regarding this, but utopia is nothing more than the truth that the world is not yet ready to hear. How many times have you been silenced because people around you refuse to listen? A lot of people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Or sometimes we're so stuck with the way we've been educated to see the world that we don't even have the capacity to understand others' perspectives and views. Sometimes you judge the person's feelings because you might feel superior or inferior because you have never felt the way he or she is feeling. Or maybe you base your answers in your own interests. How many times have you been neglected to say, "I'm scared. Please hear me out. I've made a mistake. I can't work today because I'm suffering from anxiety. I need your help. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not okay." All of these things are very hard to admit to oneself. Now imagine what it's like exteriorizing them to people who refuse to understand that we all go through this. Because a lot of times you will get this. You are foolish. You brought this to yourself. Why do you overanalyze everything? Go cry somewhere else. It's not that important. Stop making it such a big deal. You're so dramatic. And that's why you're sad for? Come on, don't be ridiculous. Grow up. Just move on. You're crazy. Don't victimize yourself. I never said that. You're overreacting. I can't talk. I have work. Stop being so anxious. You're doing everything wrong. We're responsible for the fear we've created as society. We've created cultures, institutions, and environments where everybody lays high and fakes, and tend to end up with people saying, I have lived with this my entire life, but no one has ever seen my pain. I prefer to keep it to myself. Nobody has to see me cry. I've been fighting to forget it. I'll get used to it. I don't want to talk about it. We're not asking the right questions. We're not practicing empathy. How many times have you jumped into the conclusion about that other person without knowing their background, like, she must be posing. This person needs to get laid. Why does she drink that much? With that dress, nobody is gonna hire her. Fucking feminazi. For God's sake, give him something to eat. He's unbearable. Who taught this person how to drive? She's always angry. Why does she talk like that? He doesn't have the guts. He is so fat. Why can't he stop eating, for the love of Jesus? She's probably a thief. Look at her. She's a slut. He probably doesn't have any friends. It is easy to assume all of these things, and we all have said some of it sometime. The point here is not to be a saint, but to know the person is the way they are because of something. There are reasons for everything. Cultivate your curiosity to question yourself why others dress, speak, react, judge, and feel the way they do. Never stop questioning it, because you never know what's actually happening to them. Don't tune out people who you disagree with, or worse, don't savor their pain. Feel their pain and understand why they disagree. Don't judge by looks. When someone asks for your help, actually listen. When someone asks for your opinion, think of that other person's likes. Don't think about yours for a second. Don't be an examiner. Be the interested inquirer. Walk a mile in another person's shoes before you're criticizing them. If you are religiously observant, try a God swap. Or if you're an atheist, try attending different churches. Know that people who haven't experienced love, it's difficult for them to know how to love. This makes us understand that as individual beings, we are worth nothing, that life is made up of the bonds you share with the people around you. Each person lives for so many things that without the examples we have around us, we would not understand how the world works. Understanding that each person is different, you manage to understand different realities that end up giving you a more precise and clear vision of what's going on around you. But above all, a less naive perspective of what is really happening. The only way to grow and learn is through the union of humanity by seeing, listening, and understanding each other. It's the antidote to prejudice, and everyone has the power to pursue it. Know how furiously all of our hearts are beating.
Back up the cul-de-sac. Come on, do your worst. You've quit your job again.